How's it going, everyone? And welcome to Chapter 3 of the Story of New World, a series in which I will go through the entire main story quest in the game and summarize it for you so you can experience all the lore without having to redo the leveling process. If you're new to the series, there'll be links to the first chapter at the top right of this video and in the description below, so go back and start from the beginning so you can get caught up. Last time out, in Chapter 2, we arrived in Prydwen and met all of the knights of the realm. Everyone was abuzz about the imminent arrival of the one true heir, Sir Gawain. But despite how much everyone raved about how life was in the village, something was amiss. I found out the Lost was growing at an abnormal rate, and they are constantly attacking farms around Prydwen. I was sent to check on the mines, who hadn't reported back in days. Sure enough, the Lost had taken over that location as well. After saving everyone I could at the mines, I found out that the Lost was lured there by some sort of strange magical tablet. After destroying that tablet, and gathering what remains of it I could for research purposes, I returned to Prydwen to get to the bottom of what was causing all these Lost attacks. Back in Prydwen, tension was building between the Night Region and the Minister of the region, and it felt as if things were going to come to a boiling point sooner or later. Jinjay believes the Lost pirates who took over the mines must have come from the pirate camp to the north, and is worried that if they have fallen to the Lost as well, they may have become an even greater threat than they were before. She already sent Sir Pain ahead, but I would follow behind to support him in dealing with the Lost problem. Now, let's get into Chapter 3. But first, please consider giving the video a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps out massively. Chapter 3, Lochnir's Betrayal. I left Prydwen and headed up north to the pirate camp Jinjay told me about. After meeting up with Sir Pain, he taught me a neat little trick that would come in handy in the future. He showed me how to make something called a camp, which if built right, would be a place in which my soul could be reborn if I ever died while out in Aeternum. After making my first camp, I took a few minutes to regain my strength, and then headed back to talk strategy with Sir Pain. He informs me that what used to be a small camp of pirates on the beach is now a war camp, with more and more pirates and supplies arriving by the minute. Surely, something bad was on the horizon. With such large Lost numbers, and so few of us, Sir Pain volunteered to go in alone and challenge the leader to a duel. If he wins, they withdraw from the shores and never return. A noble offer, but a stupid one all the same. Wow. Pirates are not to be trusted, and it seemed as if Sir Pain wasn't really one for strategizing, so I suggested a counterplan. I would instead head in alone, quietly, and destroy as many of the supplies as I could in order to slow their progress. So I went in, smashed all of their supplies I could find, and then made my way back to Sir Pain to begin phase 2 of the plan. The Lost aren't the smartest of creatures, so it was easy enough to sneak around them and destroy the supplies they were gathering. While I was away, Sir Pain ran into Grace O'Malley, who he was convinced was a spy because she was skulking around the pirate's lair. After convincing him she was no spy, she was just gathering intel, he let her go, and sure enough, she had gathered great intel. She found the source that was driving these Lost pirates, and it was located inside the cave only a short distance away. Some kind of altar, glowing like a beacon, was drawing all of these Lost toward it. So I headed off towards it to destroy it and put an end to this Lost pirate camp. And as a thanks for her intel, I promised Grace I'd bring her back some loot as well. The war camp was massive, and it took all of my strength to fight my way through it, but eventually I made my way into the cave and found the altar Grace was talking about. It was very strange looking, with fire around it, and strange letters glowing on the walls across from it. I proceeded to kick it into oblivion, destroying the whole altar. But just as it fell into rubble, I was ambushed by more Lost pirates, led by a man named Helvar the Navigator. It was an arduous fight, but eventually I got the better of him, and took his fancy-looking blunderbuss as payment for Grace's intel. Because I was so beat up from all the fighting, and Grace was so far away, I figured I'd try and see if Sir Pain was right about those camps. So I lured as many Lost pirates as I could towards me, stood beside an explosive barrel, and blew myself and the pirates into oblivion. Sure enough, I found myself coming to right at the camp I set up earlier, and was miles closer to where Grace was hiding out than I was before. It was a strange sensation dying and being reincarnated, but it sure beat fighting my way back out of that pirate camp. I went over and reconvened with Grace, who was pleased with her payment. From there, I went to inform Sir Pain of the good news, or as Grace likes to call him, Sir Pain in the Arse. He sends me back to Prydwen to inform the Night Region of what is going on with these tablets, but he stays behind to keep an eye out on the pirate camp and make sure they don't try anything further. Because time is of the essence, he informs me of these magical objects known as spirit shrines that allow a person to travel to and from a place they visited on the island in a matter of seconds. With his instructions on how to use them, I head up to the top of the hill where one of these is located, and give it a go. I touched the shrine before everything faded to black, and I awoke seconds later beside a different shrine, now inside Prydwen, miles away from where I just was. It was a jarring experience, but for sure better than the arduous journey I would have had ahead of me otherwise. After regaining my wits, I headed over to meet up with Jinjae and fill her in on what took place on the beach. She's pleased I returned in one piece, and informs me that the sage has been making good progress on the tablet fragments I brought for him. He believes it's of ancient origin, from the ancient civilization that had inhabited the island thousands of years ago, before the humans came to Aeternum. Jinjae then sends me to meet up with the sage in order to discuss things further, so I headed out. The sage, Geyser, informs me these tablets that have been causing issues with the Lost can only come from one place, the ancient ruins of Caladan and Antares, in the eastern woods. I suggested we head that way to investigate further, but Geyser refuses, saying Minister Lochnir forbade him from going there, saying it's too dangerous. So I ventured off alone, starting with Caladan. At the ruins, I managed to find notes left behind by Lochnir himself. It seems as if he's trying to channel the essence of the altars around the ruins to somehow influence the Lost. And he mentions that he will search further at Antares for more of these objects. So I headed there next to see if I could find out anything more about his plans. As I was reading through Lochnir's notes, Grace O'Malley showed up, who says she's been sent after me by the Night Regent Jinjae, who needs me back in Pridewind to help her figure out what's going on. Apparently, shortly after I headed out to the ruins, Lochnir started acting very strange, shouting around the town about the true heir's arrival, and then he headed south with some knights to welcome the new king. Grace followed behind them, and saw them march straight into a crowd of the Lost. Jinjae wants me to come back to town and help with Lochnir as soon as I'm done here, so I made my way towards Antares with great haste. The place was crawling with mage-like Lost, and was a real struggle to navigate through, but eventually I climbed my way up to the entrance and entered the ruins. A loud chilling noise emanated around the ruins, and laser beams shot around from wall to wall, eviscerating any object they touched. I crawled my way through the ruins, avoiding all the lasers, until finally I found the altar I was looking for. It was guarded by some strange, ancient-looking magical creature, who put up quite a fight, but was no match for my fire staff. After I dealt with the creature, I approached the tablet to study it further. I found one more page from Lochnir's journal, as I was heading out of the ruins, which is horrific to read. He had cracked the secret to controlling the Lost, and the object he built his staff around held the power to do so. To master his knowledge, he had to kill a young squire nearly a dozen times before he finally surrendered his soul to the Lost, so Lochnir could practice controlling it. Truly, the act of a monster. Lochnir had to be stopped, so with this information, I made my way back to Grace with great haste. Grace informs me that the Night Regent has headed out to the last of the farms that hasn't fallen to the Lost yet, and wants me to meet up with her there to put an end to all of this. Sir Payne will be in control of Pridewind's defenses while she's away, because she wants to deal with Lochnir herself. So I headed over to regroup with Jinjae at the farm. Once there, I filled her in about my findings at the ruins, and revealed Lochnir's plot to her. She's troubled by the news, and questions everything Lochnir has said up to this point, especially about the true heir. Apparently, the Knights of Turion Keep met the true heir, Sir Gawain, already though, and as luck would have it, one of those former knights was now working on this farm, and she goes by the name of Priscilla. Jinjae believes Priscilla isn't being 100% honest with her though, so she sends me to talk with her and see if I can find anything more out about what Lochnir is planning. So I went over and had a chat with Priscilla Wallen, who filled me in on her situation. After the Lost began attacking farms, she volunteered to work this one to ensure Pridewind did not go hungry. Unfortunately, shortly after she left Turion Keep, her fellow knights there fell to becoming lost. I informed her that this is all a plot by Minister Lochnir, which doesn't seem to surprise her too much. She goes on to tell me that she was made aware that it was Lochnir's plan to claim the Circlet of Swords, which is the royal crown of Monarch's Bluff, from Turion Keep, for the true heir, Gawain. She didn't know how he'd pull it off, since the Lost Knights remained there, defending the keep, but if he could control them, perhaps that's how he was going to accomplish his mission. With that information in mind, I decided to head towards Turion to see if I could stop Lochnir before he achieved his goal of getting that crown. Priscilla warns me against going, but Lochnir needed to be stopped now, before things got even worse than they already had. I tried to convince her to fight by my side, but she preferred not to battle her former brothers, even if their souls were already lost. She does, however, give me her Knight's Seal, which along with the other Knight's Seals, will gain me access into the Keep's sacred chamber. So now, all I needed to do was defeat all of the Lost Knights, gain their seals, gain access to the secret chamber, and recover the crown before Lochnir can. With my plan in mind, I headed off to Turion Keep. It was a massive fort, and covered in Lost warriors. These Lost were significantly more difficult to defeat than any previous Lost I faced, as they were covered in plate armor and had superior weapons, but I pushed on anyways, fighting my way through the keep. First I defeated Hawk Knight Hugh to get his seal, before defeating Sparrow Knight Stace, and eventually Crane Knight Tenny. With all 4 seals in hand, I made my way to the sacred chamber of Seliwig Goth's sanctum. Inside, everything was thrown around the sanctum, and it appeared as if I'd been beaten to the crown. After searching around a bit for evidence of what happened to the crown, I came to the conclusion that Lochnir had already got it, so I headed back to meet up with Priscilla and plan on what to do next. While strategizing with her, an epiphany hit me. How did Lochnir get into the chamber without her seal? Upon asking her that question, she turned white in the face. She finally agreed to tell me the whole honest truth. She was actually there when Lochnir brought Sir Gawain to them for them to swear loyalty to him. They were to be the first to kneel before the new king, but as they ushered Sir Gawain into the keep, they realized the true heir was lost himself. They were aghast, speechless, but Lochnir reminded them of their sworn duty to the royal bloodline, and told them that the sacrifice of becoming lost was noble and right. Then, he lined them all up and killed them one by one. Priscilla faltered, however. She couldn't do it, and she fled before it was her turn to be slain. She regrets not having said anything sooner. If she came forward sooner, perhaps some of this madness could have been prevented. But she agrees to join me in the fight to stop Lochnir, and there was no time to dwell on the mistakes of the past. We had to act now, before Lochnir got any further. Although Jinjay headed back to Pridewind, Priscilla and I would continue to try to stop Lochnir from down here. She sends me southward to go meet with a scout to plot our next move, and in the meantime, she will go dig up her armor. But that brings an end to Chapter 3. I hope you enjoyed it. If you're liking the series so far, please consider giving the video a like. It helps out massively. And also, why not subscribe to the channel with notifications on so you'll know whenever a new episode is uploaded. But until next time, have a good one. Thanks for watching another video. If you'd like to watch the next chapter, if it's available, click on the video to the left. Or, if you'd like to see the first ever transmog contest I held in New World, click on the video to the right.